All right, everyone, welcome to the Dissection, the workshop. This is the first workshop of the series. I'm hella excited. And of course, I'm the host, JustLatasha. Shout out to the people who are joining in on this Zoom live, who are able to show up in person and ask questions and chat about anything that they found interesting or confusing, or just want to throw in some more dissections that I may have overlooked. This would be super informative. This would be super fun. And of course, we're starting with one of my favorite films, Hereditary by Ari Aster. It is a 2-hour horror movie. Usually feature films are about an hour and a half, but this one is such an extended storytelling style. And the usual feature film structure is a bit elongated to format this story in particular. And we'll be going over feature film structure, story layering, and visual elements for the director's eye. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Cool, so I do keep my awesome. I can still see my chat, which is what I wanted. Great, and we are going to get started. Okay, so Hereditary. Again, produced by A24, which people in like the film student world love to tease as the supreme brand of production houses. But A24 is really on one. They produce so many incredible, cool stories. And another one that they produced is Ari Aster's Midsummer. And Ari Aster wrote and directed Hereditary, which was his like breakout film. It's definitely one of my favorite films. And we're going to deep dive into the story here, which is very layered, which is very complex. Please feel free to send me your questions if you need to, and we're going to move forward. Okay, and here's a log line for Hereditary. After their reclusive grandmother passes away, the Graham family tries to escape the dark fate they've inherited as an overwhelming terror takes over their household and their peaceful existence is ripped apart. One of my favorite aspects about Hereditary is the fact that grief is the horror. So unlike a lot of horror films where you rely on killing and ghosts and jump scares and all of the usual tactics to get the audience engaged and in that terrified emotional state, what Ari Aster here has done for this movie is manipulate the audience's emotions and the family's emotions to use it as an anchor for horror. So the fact that grief, the emotional state of grief, is positioned as something to be terrified of is something genius and uncanny, and we don't usually see horror elemented like that. It stars 4 characters that we will be following, and that is Annie, who is the wife, played by the immaculate Toni Collette, Steve, the husband, Peter, the son, and Charlie, the daughter. Charlie, who you guys have seen in maybe any of the trailers, a breakout star who does the clucking, you know, to enact the fear. And here we go. So I want to start with Act 1. Feature films follow a 3-act format, and you would find that in every single feature film, no matter how long it is, no matter how short it is, a 3-act structure. This story structure also follows the same exact way as you would set up a TV half-hour show. And what you would call Act 1 is the setup. We need to know the rules of your world. We need to know how things are working. We need to know the characters that we need to focus on and the world as it is in the normal state. So once you set up Act 1 and we get to know all of the things that represents its normality, you throw us into the next act, we can see where the changes are and where the specific anchors are to follow their goals, follow their conflicts, follow the climax. We know exactly where we're going because we know their world has changed drastically. And every story you have to have your character's world change drastically. So you guys know I'm obsessed with opening shots. Opening shots tell the entire tone and theme of the movie that we're here for. And what you're looking at right now is the opening shot of Hereditary, which is this treehouse, suspended, very structured treehouse, which I personally like to refer to as the womb. This treehouse is going to be the birthplace for all the horror that's going to ensue for this family. And it's going to be the starting and the ending point. If you guys notice, there's something elemental about this opening shot. Not only are we looking at a home, but we're looking at it from inside of a home already. This is already double layered. So what this is saying at the start of the movie is that this is going to be an examination of the family that we'll be following. This is layers of storytelling through multiple character POVs. And what Ari Aster did in this tale was include the audience in this experience, and we are a part of the story and the plan as well. If you take a look at this tree house, you would see that it's surrounded by greenery, which I've mentioned in many dissections, usually represents somewhere for something new to occur, a birth, if you will. Greenery represents something that's a new journey for your character. So the fact that this womb is surrounded by green, something is going to be birthed here. Something anew will be coming from this treehouse. And the thing about Hereditary is that this is structured as a full circle plan. Where we start is exactly where we are going to end, and it's structured that way purposefully. And you can see how structured this is all going to be by just looking at the lines of the opening shot. Look at the lines of the wooden panel on the treehouse. Look at the lines of the trees. Look at the lines of the window panes. Everything is exact and straight and going in different directions. And this is very intentional for the visual laying of the story, of how structured this story is going to be. And if you take a tiny little look all the way at the bottom, you see a fly. When this movie opens up, a fly is going around this window pane, and flies usually hang around what? Something that's rotting or something that died. So all of this tells you, in one shot, a very structured, clear plan is an act, something new is going to happen, and by the end, something is going to die. That's how detailed an opening shot can be. The layers of story that happen in Hereditary is from the POV, the point of view from several characters. And the main character, who is actually someone we never see, it's the grandmother. And so remember how we're inside of a house looking at a house. This is a layering of examination of this family. As we're inside of the house, we're now looking from the treehouse to the model homes that Annie, the wife, makes. She's an artist. She's building all these model homes, these still images from her actual life to gear up for a huge gallery opening. I feel like someone else is joining. Oh, that's Elle. Annie, the wife, is making model art, and these are pieces of her real life. This is layers of family examination, and this is actually layers of control. So while we, the audience, are examining this family, the deceased grandmother is overseeing this family, and Annie is overseeing her family. That's already 3 layers of how the point of view is going, of the story affecting 3 different points of view, us included. So again, this is going to be a full circle plan. Where we start is exactly where we're going to end. And looking in this bed, you're going to see the son, Peter. And if you guys notice, there's a light shining over his head. It's as if he's the chosen one. It's as if this is a spotlight. This is, we choose you, Peter. But we, as an audience watching this, we actually had no idea. We're just kind of watching and seeing all the details and wondering what the setup's going to be. But they do all of these details very intrinsically, and it's very integral to the story. This movie also emotionally manipulates us, because you guys look at the color blue, how much blue is in the room. This is supposed to feel calm and serene, and this movie is very manipulative of our emotions. It wants us to relax, and it wants us to trust the space, even though we know danger is coming. And you guys could just take a look on the floor and see pops of red. As safe and as peaceful as this movie wants you to feel, it's still letting you know we got something in the back pocket for you. One of the special things about the opening of Hereditary is that the family, even though they share a space, they're never sharing the same linear structure, and they're never sharing the same frame. Everyone is absolutely disconnected from each other, and without saying a word, they visually show you this. So we saw Peter lying in bed. His father peeped in for a second. Now this is Steve's wife, Annie, who's going to be like the main protagonist in this story. And as you can see, she's sitting alone in the car. This is the morning they're all heading to Annie's mother's funeral. Everyone's dressed in black. It's time to go. And we're starting this story with a death. Now we get to meet the daughter, Charlie, who likes to sleep in the clubhouse. And again, we're going to bring our attention back to the lines that the setting is showing us, right? So even though the father, Steve, is there with the daughter, Charlie, the lines are juxtaposed against each other. The lines in the clubhouse are forming in different directions. So even though they're sharing the same frame and the same space, they're not aligned. And the setting wants you to know that this family is very disjointed. I also want us to pay attention to the color orange. And something new that I learned is that you can actually blend two colors to make a meaning for a third color. So orange is actually blended between red and yellow. And of course, red represents passion and anger versus yellow, which is cheerful and positivity. So I got to spoil something for you guys right now. What orange is going to mean in this particular story is the blend of red and yellow, which is the link to the spirit world. So one of the reveals that in order to understand the layers of this story, the grandmother who was deceased, whose funeral we're on our way to, she actually put the demon Paimon inside of the daughter, Charlie, which is why she's wearing orange. Orange represents the spirit world. Charlie has a demon living inside her right now. So let's go to a funeral. We got somebody to bury, y'all. All right, this is grandma. Okay, this is grandma. And what did we just say? Now we see the yellow. Now we see the red. And we can absolutely see the link between grandma and Charlie. And they had a very, very, very strong bond. This is grandma's plan. This is entirely grandma's control. And grandma had her plan and control on Charlie, which is why they are linked. We can also see, again, our colors of green and white, which represents fertility, growth, birth. The family, however, is dressed in black because they lost something, which completely goes against what this feels right here with grandma, right? She's not in black. She's wearing these bright colors. She's surrounded by these warm, lively colors. Because grandma didn't lose something, even though she's the one dead. She's actually starting something new. Her plan has begun. So I just want to show you how they're still separating each member of the family. So they're all sharing this space, but they're never shot together, as you can see, right? However, so this family is here in this funeral room, but Charlie's here by the casket with her grandmother. She's the only one shot in this area. She's the only one shot with this woman, with the body of this woman. None of the other family members even enter the same frame as grandma. This is our direct link, and you can tell that through the visual layers of the story. So another important thing to remember in Act 1 is that we usually follow one hero when you have a feature film. However, what you can actually do in a feature is use multiple characters as one protagonist. We're going to follow 4 members because they are one unit. And another feature film that uses this technique is Parasite. You follow this Korean family. They're trying to break out of being poor, and the family moves as one unit. They're all going on the same journey, and that's what's happening with this family right here. And of course, this family gets back home right after the funeral. Look at Peter, our chosen one, the one that the plan is all for. His head is right by the color orange, which we said represents the spirit world. The spirit is calling him over. They want that body so bad. And of course, when this family gets in again, you can look at all the lines, all the boxes, all the separations, all the rooms in this house. it leaves so much space for the family to continue to be disjointed and disconnected from each other. I want to talk about the eyeglasses real quick. This is a really great use of prop and storytelling. Again, we're here to examine this family. The grandmother's deceased, but still examining the family from the beyond. Annie's making these model houses because she's examining her family from a neutral standpoint as she believes she is. However, and even her husband, Steve, he's a psychotherapist. He checks in with the family's emotions. He's always viewing his family in an emotional state. And even though these two have these props to heighten their eyesight, they still lack the vision. They have no idea. They cannot see the plan in action, how they're being used. And they also cannot see each other's truth. There's so much secrets that this family hides from each other. There's so much emotional depth that this family hides from each other. And they're all having very surface level relationships. So even though they're looking directly at each other with these focal pieces that are supposed to help them see better, they're actually remaining blind. I want to talk about Charlie's room. Again, we see our colors, right? The red and yellow's back, which makes orange. Charlie has Paimon and the spirits and all of that just creeping around her. She's made of demonic energy. And if you take a look at her headboard, there's these 3 prongs. The physical anchor that this plan needs is 3 decapitated heads in order to transfer the Paimon demon from Charlie into Peter. And you see these 3 rings and symbols. Annie's wearing a necklace of this satanic ritual symbol. The grandmother was wearing it in the casket. And you'll see these little 3 rings around the houses because they are fully a part of the satanic ritual, whether they want it or not, or whether they know about it or not. So Charlie, who's finally out of orange, there's a reason why she's wearing this cuddly, cute little jacket in bed. She is the sacrificial lamb. Her wearing this piece of clothes is showing you we're going to have to sacrifice something because Paimon is caught in the wrong body. And since we need to transfer him, we need to get rid of this body. And you can see that nice orange hazy light glowing around the room. The spirit is very much present. They directly put the red and yellow by Annie because it needs Annie to be moved and affected as well in order to work. And I want to pay attention to the colors that Annie is wearing. She's wearing green and red. This shows you that she's in danger, but she must go through it in order to access the new journey. So something in her journey needs to be gravely affected because there's a new journey waiting for her, even though she's not aware of it and she's not even choosing it. The grandmother is driving the path. In this scene is very important as well. This is where we learn that Charlie reveals grandmother wanted her to be a boy. She was grandma's favorite. And she's fearful that no one will take care of her after her mother, Annie, dies. The plan is fully intact. Grandma made a mistake, put the demon in the wrong body. We got to fix it. These are mom's things. You can see that orange light. And surprise, surprise, grandma is very much in the room, organizing things from wherever she at. I don't know where she at, but wherever she at, she's very much in control. So the movie does something here as we move forward. We get to see the kids, Peter and Charlie, at school. And they put very obvious signs in front of our faces. And when you watch Hereditary for the first time, you are guaranteed to miss it. Look at this huge sign saying critical thinking. Critical thinking. Right in our face. We have to use our minds to understand the layers of storytelling in this series and to peep the signs that has been in front of our face all the time. Let's go to Peter's class, right on the board. Again, right in our face as the audience. This movie is teasing us. Themes, escaping fate. This is the theme of the movie. If we think critically, we can actually understand from this point what journey we're on. The teacher explains that the story of Heracles, the hero undone by his fatal flaw. And one of the students says that Heracles doesn't even realize he's in a tragedy and he can't control the outcome of his death. This is what makes it a tragedy. Something's happening to Heracles. He's going to meet a tragic end, and there's nothing he can do about it. And we speak about his fatal flaw. Heracles' fatal flaw is arrogance. This family is Heracles. They have no idea they're a part of this tragic fate. No matter what they do, this fate is going to happen anyway. We are Heracles. We are arrogant in that we think we know what's going on, even if the plan is unfurling right in front of our eyes with all these hardcore signs. And due to our arrogance, we're like, okay, we know what's going on, and we still have no idea as audience. And this is us. Peter represents us. He's in a haze. He's not present. He's blurred out. He's focusing on this girl. And this girl, while we're looking at Peter stare at this girl, we're also distracted from what she says. Because of arrogance, Heracles refuses to look at all the signs literally right in front of him. We are Peter. We're distracted with Peter. Peter's distracted by the girl, and the movie tells us right in front of our face what the plan is, what's going to happen, and we missed it. You can really just laugh at yourself right here because the movie played us. Because Charlie is Paimon, and Paimon needs 3 heads to transfer bodies, Charlie's kind of in this zombie mode and just going along, not knowing why she's doing what she's doing. But Charlie starts collecting heads. When we met her in the clubhouse asleep, she already had a dead bird in there. She's collecting another head right here. And we as the audience have no idea why she's fascinated with these heads, right? But she, unbeknownst to her and unbeknownst to us, is a part of the plan to collect these heads. We just think, oh, she's being weird. We see that she has like a physical condition, and we just pay this no mind, right? Like this little girl is just doing whatever she want to do. We are a part of the hopeless, arrogant plan. I really love this shot here. This, what the movie does visually is position the real life setting of this family as a dollhouse. So we feel disconnected from this family. Annie feels like a figurine in her own house. And this is us just having a neutral view of the family. Notice Annie is dressed in red. She's the mark, she's the target, the danger will find her. But she's off center, right? This should feel a little off balance. And take one more clue, look up right above Annie's head, what do we see? We see those 3 diamonds. We see those 3 heads that need to be collected, right? This is the movie teasing us once again. So this shot was extremely cool, and I'm gonna tell you why. Annie keeps a secret from her family. She keeps a secret that she's going to grief counseling to unwork the emotions of her childhood and the relationship with her deceased mother. She doesn't know what to do with all these feelings. And we look at her colors, she's in red and blue, and this is what I call the mark being watered. Annie's character is positioned to be groomed to be the leading force of allowing Paimon to escape her daughter Charlie and enter her son Peter. She's being used as a pawn. So from this moment right here, she's being chosen, she's being directed, she's being used. And in order to do that, we need Annie to emotionally dump. We need her to let this go. We need her wound to be open. And this makes her vulnerable for a spiritual combination. So unfortunately, my photo cuts it off, but there's a character in the scene that we easily miss because it's the first time that we see it, and her name is Joni. Joni, if you watch the movie, becomes a huge part of Annie's discovery and link into the spirit world, and she was right here in the scene, and we totally missed it first time around. If you also notice, there's an empty seat. Now, knowing everything that this movie is setting up, knowing who's all in control of the plan, what plan is happening, what we're here for, we know who exactly is in that empty seat. This was intentional to leave that empty. The grandmother, deceased, and Joni in the present are both working to water Annie to get her to lead Paimon into her son, Peter. We learn so much backstory about Annie's character in this scene as well, that she hides from absolutely everyone. And we learn that her mother suffered from mental illness, which affected her brother. Her brother committed suicide when they were kids. And her mother deeply affected her current family. And out of all the turmoil her mother put on her and her brother and her life, Annie blames herself for all of it. She carries deep guilt, she carries deep shame, and she says a very important line, "I'm blamed." I am blamed. And she's carrying all of this on her own shoulders. So Charlie here, like we saw with Peter in the beginning, we have shots that are twins of each other. They look exactly the same. This light is shining through the home, but it's choosing Charlie. We can see that something out of her control is choosing her. She has to be the first head to go. And as you can see in her bed, 2 of those heads are covered. 1 is showing. She has to be the first head collected. And here we go. If you guys have watched Hereditary, we lose Charlie in a very gruesome, graphic way. Peter was driving. Charlie was having an allergic reaction and stuck her head out of a window, ran into a telephone pole, and the baby lost her head. So now he's sitting there with the headless, bloody, gory, lifeless body in the back seat, and he has to just take that trauma on. He just has to hold that. Let's take a look at the setting. Let's look at the light, right? He is the cause of the danger, and the danger will still follow him. It'll be right behind him wherever he goes. So this is already the second funeral. And when we saw Annie have to bury and give a eulogy for her mother, she was very stoic. She was very emotionless. She asked her husband, should I be more sad? But she just wasn't, right? Compared to her losing Charlie, she is filled with grief, guttural screaming, and this is where her full emotion shows. And as you can look in the room, you can see right here, we got some red and we got some yellow. The spirit world is making itself nice and comfy around Annie and in her home. And we also see a mirror, right? This is where our married couple, Annie and Peter, officially break. We have a divide in the couple, and they both grow into their new identities and new resentment towards each other. This is how grief is being positioned as an anchor to horror. Grief in these people is being morphed into changing who they are and changing their relationships with each other. And you see that we're standing from the outside of the door. We are to examine. We are not to empathize. We are not to feel. We are not to be with them. They are the model art home, and we are the creator. We are the divine watching and examining this family. Versus Peter, who adopts Annie's shame and Annie's guilt. It's his fault. He was driving the car, right? Look how numb he is. Look how he dies inside. A part of him died too. So he went from this loser floating through life, not really having a direction for himself, kind of numb, to absolutely nothing. What an emotional wound that makes a beautiful cushion for a spirit to just dive right in, huh? Meanwhile, Annie's shame, Annie's guilt that she already had intensifies, and it morphs into resentment towards Peter, her son. So grief, again, will act as a moving vehicle to emotionally murder this family. They have to die emotionally first. This is the opening portal for the demonic to seep in. Let's take a look at this obviously bright blue coffin. This is watering the earth. This is a new form taking place for this family. Her death, Charlie's death, is the green light for the plan to go ahead and forge ahead. You can see where the family is spaced out. Peter is not connecting with his parents at all. There's a huge divide right there physically. And Annie is the only one crying, right? So this right here, if Act 1 was to show us what normal life was like, we saw the family, we saw their normal life, we saw how they related to each other. Act 2 is when something so drastic changes that it forces our characters, it forces our heroes to move into an entirely new world. But Act 2 has this thing where it's kind of split into two. Is Act 2 Part 1 is where our characters are going into a new world, but they're using their same old, usual, normal skills to go on a new journey. And this usually happens between the 25 and the 30-minute mark. Your inciting incident, what causes your protagonist to have to change so drastically that they have to choose a new journey? It's usually as huge as a life or death decision for feature films, and it's usually something that the character has to make the choice. They have to go on this new journey. They cannot stay in their usual world. Charlie's dead, right? There's nothing that they can do. They have to move on into their new world, life without Charlie. How do they navigate a new space while using the same skills that they've been trying to use to get to a new place? Part one, act two, part one is usually, all right, we're in a new place. We're trying to do it with our old skills. And part one is where it goes well. Part one where it's kind of fine. Like, we're just going to deal with it. So I'm going to pause right here before we move into act two. Any questions or any comments so far?
I guess, was the demon inside of her before she died, or because
Yes,
I remember she said, she was
ahead.
like, she wanted her son, what's his name? She wanted the boy, but I gave her Charlie.
Mm-hmm. So Annie has this huge disconnect and resentment towards her mother, and her mother's always been overbearing. So she hid Peter from her mother. And because she did that, she felt guilty. So by the time Charlie came, she was like, all right, well, I didn't allow you to touch my son. So here, you can be involved with my daughter. And that's why the grandmother put Paimon in the daughter. Annie's brother, the one who committed suicide and had a mental illness, Paimon was inside of him first, which drove him crazy, which made him kill himself. That's why he's not here. So Grandma's plan has been in action for years. But Annie's been like screwing it up a little bit. You know what I mean? Annie's been like, you're being weird, you're overbearing. Why are you breastfeeding my daughter? Just a whole lot. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So let's dive into Act 2. So as we can see, the first trap has been set. The first head has been collected. Paimon is expanded outside of Charlie. We went from the orange hoodie to the orange vision, right? Paimon is just existing amongst his family, but he needs to be directed into a new body. This is the first vision right after Charlie dies. Paimon is here. He's just outside of a body. And who is the target? Who does Paimon have his eyes on? Right here, he has his eyes on Peter. Peter is the only one behind this orange glaze. He's already creating a division and a separation for Peter. Peter is the target. And with the death of Charlie, this is the emotional wound that further creates the portal so Paimon can enter Peter. Let's go back to the womb. Something's baking, right? And we think of a woman's pregnancy. We think of like bun in the oven. Look how hot it is. Look how it's baking. It's curating something. And this view is actually from Peter's room. So the only two people that can see this treehouse from their room are Peter and Annie. Well, Annie and Steve, her husband Steve, they share a room, so technically it's the parents and Peter. They're the ones who have direct vision to the treehouse, because they're the ones who have direct cause for this plan. They're the direct pawns of this plan. So while Annie sneaks out at night, divesting from her marriage, divesting from her husband, she goes into the womb to sleep. She thinks she's just missing her daughter and connecting with her daughter, Charlie, but she's being pulled and commanded by the overhead plan to start grooming her to play her part in this plan. And Peter, the version of the movie that I have didn't show the shot, but you can see the red light shining. Peter can't sleep. He's looking directly at this treehouse, and this light is shining right in his eyes. So all of it is just linking these two. They're lining them up just to knock them down. And you can just see like she's just incubating. She's in danger. She's covered in the blood of the sacrifice. And who is the next that we see? This beautiful long exposure of Peter over Annie. These two are necessary for Paimon to make his transfer. So though they're further apart in the physical world, there's a bigger disassociation between the two. They are divinely linked through a satanic plan. So Annie is being used to rebirth Peter, but currently she's in her mother's womb, and Peter is the end goal. And we see in the shot, again, another twin shot. This is exactly how we saw Peter earlier. Let me see if it'll pull it up. We can see this twin shot right here. And they put her in the same exact place. So we know something's coming for Annie. All right. In Act 2, we meet new characters from the new world who is going to help guide our protagonists down their new journey, because they don't quite know where they're going. But somebody else, a character, always comes along, show them, oh, we're going to go this way. Don't worry, I'm a pro at this. So I'm actually going to turn the question to you, Elle. Since you're the only one here, you got a lot of pressure. So Elle, looking at Joni's clothes, what can you dissect from the meaning?
She has the red on, so she's possessed, which I did not get that from my watch, but from what you just talked about, yeah. I'm gonna go with that.
Right. Look, good guess, right? Good guess. So when we first saw Annie sitting in the grief counseling room, and that's actually where Joni was before she introduced herself, Annie was actually in a red shirt and a blue jacket. And this time we see Joni, she's in a blue dress and a red jacket. This is because Joni is controlling the danger, right? She is the water for Annie. And I know this gets a little late and a little complicated, but once you spend time with it, it becomes a little more clear. The red and yellow pop up again because Joni represents the spirit world. She's a part of the grandmother's plan. She's a part of the grandmother's satanic group. She wants Paimon to successfully transfer into Peter, so she's going to guide it in this physical realm. So she's wearing red and yellow. Charlie was wearing orange because she is Paimon, but Joni's wearing a blue dress because she will water Annie. She's going to put the information and groom Annie herself. And look at Annie, right after she came out of her mother's womb, after she came out of that treehouse, she's rebirthed. She's dressed in white. She's a blank slate, ready, absolutely ready to be reborn, to be groomed. And we could look here. She's on her way to go visit Joni. We see all this green. She's on a new path. She's ready to go, dressed in white as a blank slate. And they do something really, really cool here. They literally make her cross over. We see her intentionally cross the street over the yellow line of the street. She's crossing the yellow line into the spirit world. She's going to Joni and taking heed from this woman. And Joni has this big black door at the front of her building. She's heading right into the darkness and she has no idea. More colors here again, right? Joni is the danger, dressed in red. Annie is that blank slate, ready to be primed and primed. And we have that orange lamp. Paimon is here. The spirit world is being controlled, and we see who our puppeteers are. But we start this scene behind Annie's back because, obviously, there's a plan going on behind her back and out of her vision. She has no idea. They even make it way more clear here in this shot. Joni, the water, giving Annie, grooming Annie, watering Annie, the plant, who's receiving all this information and being perfectly primed and prepped to allow Paimon to enter her family and her son. We see those orange teacups. We see that green plant. We see Annie dressed in white. All of it is a higher level plan. And here in this scene, we also have another emotional purge for Annie. Annie needs to get all of the stuff off of her chest to make her right for the infiltration. And this is where we find out where Annie sleepwalks, and she never wanted to have Peter, and she almost set Peter on fire, and she holds all this guilt again. Peter doesn't know this. Her husband Steve doesn't know this. Her mother never knew this. Annie has been holding all of this on her own. So how ironic that she's confessing to Joni, who she just met. She's supposed to confess when Joni is around, because Joni is just priming that emotional wound to open up for all this plan to happen, right? The emotional emptying is needed to make room for Pyman. And we see here Joni is shown with the reflection. She has that dark shadow reflection right behind her, right? She has a hidden identity. There's something sinister behind Joni, and she's carrying it with her. So let's go on back home. How is the family trying to move on without Charlie? What is the difference now between how their usual normal that we saw in Act 1, where they were loving and connected and surface level, but they were fine for the most part? Look at this huge divide between our couple. They cannot share a space. They absolutely cannot share a space, you know? And look at this orange light behind Steve. Pyman is infiltrating every aspect of this home and family. And what has caused the divide? Annie is recreating the model of Peter's accident. This is where and how Charlie died. This is the start of this couple's split. We can see the director makes a very intentional decision to not allow this couple to share a frame. They're on two different levels. They're in two different lines. And Steve can no longer water Annie. You know, Steve, even though Annie wouldn't share a lot, Steve, as a psychoanalyst, always checks in on his family's emotions. But he can't relate to her anymore. He can't see her anymore. They're literally cut off from each other. This dinner scene, which is one of the most iconic scenes in horror for this generation, at least, very emotionally charged. This is where Toni Collette gave her outstanding, pristine acting performance right here. And look at the light hanging over them, right? This orange haze. We know who and what is in the room and affecting this family, and there is no joy here at all. They're emotionally split. They're forced to share a space, but this is the moment where they finally emotionally purge to each other. Truths are finally said. We need to get it out. We need to divide this family. We need to isolate these characters so Pyman can go ahead and do his thing. Woo! I mean, this moment right here is absolutely everything. This is Annie's full release. This is the demonic Pyman just taking over, using her pain. And this in the movie is what we call the midpoint. Something happens so drastically that completely turns the journey against itself. So this is where Act 2, Part 1 meets Act 2, Part 2. Everything was okay when y'all was trying to enter the new world with your same old skills, but as we can see, it just won't cut it anymore. We're gonna have to find new skills to maneuver better in this new journey and in this new space. And at this moment where she finally says what she's been dying to say, this is the midpoint. So now we have new skills. The family is communicating. It looks ugly, but they are. They're telling each other the truth. They're letting it all out on the table. They have never done this before. This is the new skill added to our protagonist. So let's get into Act 2, Part 2. Joni's back. She's got a plan. She's got something to do. She's got to get to Annie, and we got to get Pyman transferred ASAP. So Annie's not a baby anymore. She's been reborn. She's been primed and primed. She's been groomed. Look what color she's in. Annie has fully become the plant. Joni has come back again to be the water, and she has come back again to drive the danger into the home. A seed was planted, the plan is well underway, and this is where Joni introduces Annie to a demonic spiritual practice to bring the dead into the world. This will be Annie's new skill in her new world, life without Charlie. So here she's just physically learning how to do it. We can see all that orange light filling the room. And this shot is really special, right? We know Joni's lying. She's pretending to be this cutesy grandma, sweet, I care about you, let me know the trauma, girl, I can relate. That was a mask. That was a lie. We remember that dark reflection Joni had. Her dark reflection was her truth, and what she shows to Annie is the lie. So I have a question for you, Elle. You ready? I was like, girl, please. I don't know why
I'm
my
not
other
ready.
students ain't here. I don't know why. So, why do you think we see Joni? This okay. Actually, let me give you a hint. When we see this shot, Joni says to Annie, "Hey, you didn't kill her. You didn't kill Charlie," because Annie holds guilt for everything. So why does she say that specific line in this specific shot? Annie, you didn't kill Charlie.
I think to get her to open up to her.
Close.
Maybe to make her feel better, comfortable. And then her mirror. Wait, let me get into my just
come on, girl, get into
mine. The mirror is
represent.
So she's telling the truth now. You be
teaching. I'm so proud of you. Yes, through the mirror, she finally tells the truth. You didn't kill her, Annie, which is true. Annie didn't kill her. Charlie was supposed to die because it's Joni and the grandmother's plan. Absolutely. Take that guilt off of you, girl. That was me. Go ahead, Elle. I'm so proud of you. Cheers, girl. That was so good. I'm so happy. Look, I'm so proud. Okay. Yes, that was exactly right. So now we meet the family seance where Annie is trying to share her new skill set with her family in order to connect with Charlie. Again, grief is anchored as a horror. This family is so desperate and so hurt. They do not connect with each other. They just lost a child. A lot of them have resumed shame and guilt surrounding Charlie's death. So Annie's like, let me try something here. And let's look at this family finally in one frame, linked hand in hand, and look at the lines on the ceiling, right? They are finally aligned. They are deep into the plan, and them being together, which is not their norm, but them being together serves a larger purpose. Them trying to connect is a new skill, and it's to serve the larger purpose of Grandma's plan. So grief here has morphed into apathy and patience. Like, okay, let me give Annie this chance. Let her try. Let her do her thing, because they're all hurt, right? But they still haven't forgiven each other, and more secrets are revealed, right? We find out through these following scenes that Peter resents his mother for not originally wanting him as a child. Steve resents Annie for abandoning their marriage and their son. Annie is emotionally divesting from Peter, holding the death of Charlie above his head. However, Annie wants forgiveness. She wants to forgive herself, and she wants her family to forgive her. She is blamed. They wouldn't even be here if her mother wasn't in their lives, and she allowed her mother in their lives, and it affected all of them. She is blamed. Her doing the seance is a desperation to reconnect her family with Charlie because she blames herself. Whoo! Pyman said hello. Pyman, right about here, said hello. He got a little sneak peek, and he's seeping inside of Peter, and look at all that red surrounding Peter, right? And again, we have here Peter looking into reflection. We have a split of identity. This is Pyman saying hello to Peter from Peter. What a full shot. What a full visual shot. And because of Annie and, of course, the grandmother, Peter is fully immersed in danger. So let's bring it back to the theme of the Greek gods, because we're in Peter's class. We're learning again about these Greek gods. Annie's flaw, like Heracles, her flaw of guilt directs them all towards the tragedy. She holds this over her head. Her flaw is that she is blamed, and this directly forges her entire family into the fateful tragedy that they cannot avoid. We're losing Annie. She's nearly fully submerged in the darkness, and she's completely lost control of her family and of herself. And in order for the spirit to work, they need to further isolate themselves. This is her physically hiding from her family. She doesn't want to see them. She doesn't want to greet them. She doesn't want to connect. Whenever she sees them pass, she slips away and makes sure they don't talk to her at all. So Annie's like, we way into deep to this. This is something dark. I made a mistake. I want this all reversed. Where's Joni? How can we reverse what happened? But sorry, sis. The trap is already set. And of course, you can look over here and see the symbol of the 3 heads. We need to collect 2 more. We need to collect 2 more. And from the beginning, Peter was the goal. Let me see here. You can see that color there on the table right there. What color did we meet Peter in, right? So this is all intrinsically aligned with each other. This is all aligned. Peter is chosen. Annie is too late. She's trying to get in. She's trying to save her kid, but baby girl, okay, you're late. Here we see again, Peter is the target. Look at all this blue. Peter needs to be reborn. Look at all this green. And who's here? Finally, Joni in red and white. She is a ceremonial mother. She is the leader of the rebirth, and she will direct the danger. And from here, she's screaming at Peter, the son, to move out of the way, let Pyman in, and she's literally calling for him to allow this transition to happen. And while we have this barred gate between them, she's literally trying to break the barrier for Pyman, the demon. It's time to work. The spirit has something to do. The demon got something to do. Joni got something to do. It's time to get to work, right? In Act 2, Part 2, this new journey completely comes to a head. We come to a full loss, and we're on our way to the climax. So it's time to clear. It's time to collect my head. It's time to solidify this plan. Got to get Daddy out of there. Sorry, Steve. Annie is she's being taken over, and she's in all white because this final terror, this sheer terror, and this gravest loss that she knows. Because her mother wasn't it. Charlie got her there, but losing Steve in this horrific and traumatic way is the final step to get her emotionally totally broken so she can become possessed. She is now officially a pawn in this plan. She no longer has control. Horror ensues. Bam, bam, bam. If you guys want to watch the Hereditary film, I won't spoil it here for you. It gets really good, really scary right about here. We lose Annie. She needs to be the second head. And what we find out in this portion of the movie as well is that the grandmother was the third head all along. So we have our 3 heads. We have Grandma's head, we have Charlie's head, and now we have Annie's head. Steve is out the way. Pyman is here. Let's go. We terrorize Peter so much, so much, that he jumps out of a window, physically dies, but Pyman is reborn. But he can't be born yet until he goes into his womb. He goes home, right? This is Peter, or Pyman, climbing in Peter's body into the womb where he is to be officially welcomed and reborn. We are now at Act 3. In any other feature film, this will take about 20 minutes to do all the cooldowns, tie up loose ends, solve all the problems. The new world is set. We fought our biggest battle, and now that we've beat our new journey, we've developed new skills, we won our adventure. Let's just tie up all these loose ends, and we're officially in the new world that will start the rest of our lives. It's the start of the rest of our lives. However, the timing of Hereditary is so scaled differently. Act 3 literally is about 5 minutes, right? Because we did all the setup and all the storytelling and all the horror in Act 1 and 2. Act 3 is over like that. Not usual, but if you know the rules, you know also how to break them. Again, we're ending just the way we started. We said in that very first image, right? The light over Peter's head is exactly how we end, with that light right over his head. Peter, you've been chosen from the beginning, baby. This is a full circle moment. And something really special happens in the scene. We went through a tragedy. We lost all of our protagonists. None of our heroes made it out alive, and the villain won. And in this music, this is a huge loss for the audience. It's a huge loss to the family. However, the music sounds like a victory, right? Paimon wins. Paimon wins. The villain wins. The plan thrown right in our face in the beginning, that was actually the protagonist, and this family was the antagonist. Paimon won. He was the one that was supposed to win from the beginning. The grandmother, Joni, Paimon, the spirit demonic world, their plan is complete. They won. We finally see Charlie. Since we lost her from that telephone pole, it's time for Paimon to go ahead. Fate fulfilled. Charlie passes the torch to her brother. Paimon transfers from Charlie to Peter successfully. He accepts. Oh, my little video won't play. It was a really cute gift. He accepts. Oh, it is playing. Ah. And the plan works. Happy birthday, Paimon. Welcome to the world, Paimon. You did a great job, baby. Tragedy is when our heroes lose, but the story and the goal is still served. We have been hoodwinked, tricked, bamboozled, rooting for the wrong team all along. We thought we were rooting for the family to win, but this was Paimon's goal and his story all along, using this family as pawns. So we celebrate and welcome. And of course, Joni is there to welcome Paimon into the world and into the correct body. Final shot, we get our dollhouse shot. How we begin is how we end. Peter was the first and the last image. The womb, the treehouse was the first and the last image. And of course, we're so disconnected from it because we are the examiners of all the players in these pieces. So, and the last note that I want to leave you with is that the death was at sunrise when we started the movie, right? It was beautiful, early morning, clear as day. And we started with the funeral. And now we end with the birth of Paimon at sunset. Plan is complete. So that was Hereditary. That was our dissection workshop for a full feature film. Do you have any last questions or notes or curiosities?
Yikes. I think it was interesting. The last scene kind of reminded me of like a nativity scene.
Yes.
Like the nativity scene.
Completely Antichrist, birth of the demon instead of Jesus.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
No. The burning, I guess when he burnt up, the husband burnt up, that reminded me of religion too. I forget which. Is it Buddha? Well, that's not, well, maybe it's Buddhism. And they talk about like how when they burn up the body, it like is abandoning the flesh. So I thought that was interesting.
And I would imagine that's the answer, because where else you gonna go? What else you gonna do? You gotta peace out. I ain't standing there. Learning. I ain't standing there.
And then the writings on the wall, I thought that was interesting, how you pointed out the different writings on the wall. And then whenever, was it the attic scene? When they like wrote on the wall in blood?
Yeah, so actually, I left those out, but yes, they were satanic writings behind Charlie's bed. There was a satanic writing in Grandma's old room. And yes, there was writing in blood over Grandma's body in the attic. Those are just all the details of the grand plan. Charlie was marked. Grandma was like the ringleader. She was the start of the plan. Yeah. Disturbing, but we made it. Elle, I thank you so much for braving through this terrifying movie for the dissection. I don't know what my attachment is to horror and really terrifying things, but I love it so much. So I thank you for braving it.
No, it was really good though. It was insightful, but disturbing.
Yeah. All right, and that concludes our very first dissection workshop. I want to thank Elle for physically being here. I want to thank my other two patrons for also buying and viewing this at a later date on their leisure. And I will see you guys on YouTube next time with further dissections in our Dragon Black Society, as we need to do.
Thank you.
Of course. Anything. I'll see y'all later.
See ya.